Hey guys, Tori here from Overlook Horizon. Welcome back. We're ready for another Starlink launch. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I missed the last two Starlink launches, so we're gonna be back, and we're back at it today for hopefully a nice little night launch from the east coast of Florida. So we're up. This is it's a bit confusing here. Even without recent events, the naming structure for Starlink is always a bit confusing because it always seems like I'm one number behind. In the past, we'd be launching Starlink 17, and it would technically be the 18th mission because there was one flight of version 0.9 satellites, and I'd be counting that as launch 0, and then the rest of them I would start at the version 1.0 satellites, launch 1, version 1.0, launch 2, and so on. So technically this is launch 17, but to make things even more confusing, as if it wasn't confusing enough, flight 18 and 19 has already flown. So yeah, we kept the original naming structure. This one got delayed a bunch of times, and I think maybe today's the day we're actually going to see this guy fly. This is today's flight. This is one of the flight leaders here for the boosters. This is going to be the 8th flight for this booster. Big numbers here now. We're getting up there. Presumably, maybe this had something to do with why they delayed it, because we're up to number 8 here. They're getting, they've seen their action a couple of times now. So we'll see how things go. Now, obviously, I wasn't here for the last one, but if you watched the last Starlink launch, you might know that for the first time in a long time, SpaceX actually failed to land their first stage booster on the drone ship. And rumor has it that they did that intentionally. It was completely intentional, because there was a hazard on the drone ship known as the Space Seagulls. The Space Seagulls were on the drone ship, and the booster is smart enough to recognize those seagulls were there, and it decided to abort the landing and not land on the drone ship. That's what I'm told. I'm kidding. You must know that I'm kidding, obviously. But there were seagulls there. But I think the actual reason why, there was some heat damage to one of the engines that didn't perform well. So that's why it actually missed the drone ship landing. But I like my story better. So anyways, what's happening, everybody? I see everybody commenting here. I saw everybody telling me where they were watching from as they were watching the intro here today. So in case you missed it, tell me in the chat where you're watching from. I'll grab a couple of comments here, and I want to see where we've got to check in with everybody, see where everybody's watching from, because I saw that Andrew Renna is watching from Connecticut. We got BNB from Memphis, Tennessee, which is awesome. Scottsdale, Arizona. We've got our friends over on Facebook, Periscope, and Twitch as well. We multicast this. We're all over the place. YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, Twitch. Periscope, I hear, is going away, actually. Maybe like next month, right? I don't know what's going to happen with that. But anyways, so we also had Metro Detroit is where Jade's from. We got more Detroit. Seth from Long Island. That's not too far from where I am there. Seattle, Mars. Zegog is from Mars. Great. Give Perseverance my regards. I am impressed at how... Tell me how the latency is on Mars with the broadcast here. Hopefully it's not too bad. But then we got our international friends. A bunch of people from Sweden, like William and John. Hamo from Algeria. More Switzerland is... it scrolled off the page, so I don't know who that was. But I saw Switzerland, Las Vegas, Kenneth. So yeah, hello everybody. And there we go. And Manigard, thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Thanks for your support. Manigard's one of our Patreon members. Said, still in my same chair here in Nashville. Well, where else would you want to be? Yeah, that's where you're supposed to be. Right in your chair, ready to watch Starlink fly. We'll get into all our usual stuff, what it's looking like, the weather, the flight path, get you up to speed here in just a second. But I figure since it's been a while, we ought to check in with everybody, see where everybody's from. Robert from Akron, Ohio, over on Facebook. Jack on Periscope from Scotland. I was tempted to try to do a Scottish accent, but then I quickly realized that would have been a terrible idea. I probably would have offended the entire country. All right, so we probably should dive in and see. Oh, hey, Carrie Ann, one of our regulars. Thanks for the super sticker. Gave me a little thumbs up there. Said good job. Is our little lobster friend not working? Where's my oh, there it is. Hello, lobster. Welcome to Space Lobster Nation here. The lobster joined us. I thought maybe the lobster wasn't working. He's a little tired today. He's taking his time getting in here to alert us of the super chats and stuff like that. What is this music that we got? We need better music than that. All right, let's dive into it. We'll see. Oh, Star Andrea 22. Thanks also for the super chat. Gave me a little thumbs up. The super sticker, I guess that's technically what they call it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the support. Let's dive in, shall we? And let's talk about today's mission, because it's a Starlink mission, and maybe you've seen these before. But just in case you haven't, we probably ought to get you up to speed. Oh, and I probably should tell you, just in case you haven't seen, we'll do the little Earth thing again, so you can see all my little gadgets. Just in case you haven't watched before, we got the countdown timer up here, so you don't have to necessarily ask me how much time until launch. We've got it right here. I got you covered. 24 minutes until launch. Roughly. It may not be up to the second. When SpaceX goes live, I'll update my little countdown clock here, get it to match theirs, so that all these events that pass by will be in sync with what we're actually expecting to see throughout the flight. Because we've got all those events there, and they'll update as we get closer. Feel free to read them and check them out, and stop paying attention to me if you don't want to hear me rant about stuff. But I've got all the events there, so you can be up to speed on what's happening here with the flight here today. Let's see. Oh, Deborah. Hey, Deborah, thanks for the super chat. Deborah says, hello, Tori. Thanks for hosting this tonight from Naperville, Illinois. Awesome. Thank you, Deborah. Really appreciate it. Deborah, another one of our regulars. Thank you very much, Deborah. Thanks for your support. Glad you're checking in from Illinois. Or as I said the last time in the last stream during the Mars launch, Illinois. All right, so Starlink flight today. This is another set of SpaceX's low Earth orbit internet constellation. They've got quite a few of them up there, actually. I didn't even, I think I'm behind. What is the official number here now? I can tell you here in just 1 second. But the official number is, where is it? 1,081. 1,081 currently in orbit. They've launched a total of 1,145. So a lot of satellites now. Remember, 60, two of them were Tintin A and B. 60 of them were the original version 0.9 satellites, and the other 1,083 are the version 1.0 satellites. So we've got quite a few and then of course some of these have since come out of orbit, or deorbitated, if you will. It's gonna deorbit, otherwise known as deorbit. They have, some of them have failed, which is expected. It's not entirely unusual for this large of a constellation to have some failure rate on satellites and to have some of them deorbit or deorbit. That's not entirely unusual, but yeah, we're at over 1,000, 1,081 currently in orbit. Now, like most of the satellite launches here, we're going to have a northeastern direction during the launch here today. So we're launching from launch pad 39A. That's the big historic launch pad down here on the Kennedy Space Center property. This is 39A. Here's 39B. That's where SLS will launch from someday. But 39A down here on the bigger, they're both pretty big, but the bigger of the two SpaceX launch pads there. So that's 39A. That's also where Crew Dragon launches from, where Falcon Heavy launches from, and Falcon 9 can launch from there as well. They can also launch Falcon 9 from pad 40 down here, Slick 40. That's their smaller one. This one cannot launch Falcon Heavy or Crew Dragon, but it's just slightly to the south. And then you've got a United Launch Alliance launch pad here, sandwiched in the middle there. That's what this launch pad is. And then there's a whole bunch of current and former launch facilities all up and down the Cape Canaveral here. This is all down here towards the bottom. This is all Cape Canaveral Space Force Station property here. That's what Slick 40 is on. Actually, it starts up here. So Slick 40, which is right here, this is Cape Canaveral Space Force Station property. Up here, these two launch pads is Kennedy Space Center property. So this is Launch Complex 39A and 39B, and you can see the big, huge crawlerways where they come right from the Vehicle Assembly Building, which is right here. The NASA Vehicle Assembly Building used to have the space shuttle, would roll out on this giant crawlerway and either make a hard left out to pad B or straight on till morning and hit launch pad 39A. So that's where we're headed here for today. You can see, courtesy of flightclub.io, Oh, yep, there we go. If I can navigate it correctly. The red sections here are powered flight. The gray sections are coasting phases. So we get powered flight up to here. This is the separation event right here. You'll get separation of the first and second stage. Second stage, obviously, going to continue on into orbit with the satellites. First stage is... It's going to deorbitate. Right, first stage coming back. It's suborbital, so it's coming back. You'll get an entry burn right here to slow it down, and then we'll get our landing burn on the drone ship. And hopefully, no seagulls today. Keep the seagulls out of the way. Rumor has it there's now they have an official scarecrow on board. I don't know about that. Some of our Discord members were mentioning that there's a scarecrow. There's going to be a scarecrow on the drone ship today to scare off the seagulls, so they don't interfere with the landing operation. We don't want any seagulls harmed in the landing in any spaceflight operations. So yeah, if you want to join our Discord, it's free, and you can. Get our friendly Nightbot. You can type ! Discord in the YouTube chat, and our friendly Nightbot will give you a link to join our Discord for free and hang out with us. Okay. So, anyways, the second stage. Let's see. I always have trouble navigating. Let's see. Oh, now I did it. Now we did. Oh, we're going the wrong way. No, not South America. This way. Okay. So, second stage gonna come up here. You'll get cut off. Second stage cut off. The single engine cut off. SECO 1. We get a big, long coast phase. We'll get a 1 second... I don't even know if we can even see it on this map. There it is, because there's a 1 second reignition here, a relight for 1 second right here over the Indian Ocean. Gets it into that final orbit, and then we get deployment about 1 hour after launch. So it is going to be a bit of a long one here for deployments, but we'll stick around. We'll hang out. We haven't done one of these in a while, so why not? We got to stick around. Let's see. All right, so SpaceX is live already. We'll get them. They're not talking yet. We just got some music up, but we'll get to them here in just a minute. Let's see. Why is it such poor quality? We want better quality than that, though. Real quick, before we jump over to what SpaceX is going to cover, let's talk about weather here. Well, we'll actually also look at the satellite constellation. So here's the Starlink satellites. You can see this web that they're weaving here around the planet. It's starting to tighten up. We're getting a lot of coverage here now, and they're actually going. They said really in my area might have it available partway through this year. So they're already opening up to different areas. It's pretty limited right now, but about halfway through this year, they should open it up to a lot more areas, and then by next year, you'll get even more areas covered. So they are really, really starting to cover the globe here now. So let's hit weather real quick, because weather's looking great. We've got basically a 90% chance of launch today. 90% chance of launch. This does not factor in upper level winds or booster recovery or solar activity, but it does generally cover the primary launch weather conditions, things like cumulus clouds, liftoff winds, lightning risk, things like that. Primary concern today is a 10% chance of violation, which would be the cumulus cloud rule and liftoff winds. But liftoff winds, looking at the map here, are actually not looking too bad. So our liftoff winds here, we're at about 15 miles per hour, which is getting up there, but I'm not too concerned. So ground level winds here, about 10 to 15 miles per hour. I wonder what our wind gusts are. Why don't we bump it up? Yeah, so we're at about 15 gusting to 24, 25 miles per hour. Somebody help me out and do a metric conversion there. That would, if you can help me out there. But yeah, 15 gusting to 25. Shouldn't be too bad. The wind gusts are a little bit up there. But then our upper level winds are not too bad as well. It sounds bad because they're at 65 miles per hour on the upper level winds, but that's not too bad for a rocket launch. Usually it's once we get up to like 140 mile per hour winds, 150, like that's where you start to get, you're like, whoa, all right, it's a bit quick. So weather's looking pretty good. I don't really have too many concerns for weather. It is a night launch today, so it's going to be tough for us to really tell what's happening for weather, but luckily we don't have any major concerns for like cloud coverage. I mean, we do have the cumulus cloud rule, I guess, but it is only 10% chance of violation. So hopefully we're in good shape for that. And then we'll talk about this a little bit later, but this is This was the weather map for Boca Chica for tomorrow for Starship SN10, but just as I was about to go live, Mary the Boca Chica gal said she received an update and there will not be an SN10 launch attempt tomorrow. And they will be launching no earlier than Wednesday now. So we'll talk about that in between launch and deployment, but just FYI, I was going to talk about weather for tomorrow because I was like, well, upper level winds tomorrow in Boca Chica are up there. They're pretty high, but sounds like that's not happening now. So there's your little tidbit about Starship today. But let's focus on the task at hand, which is Starlink, not Starship, because we want to see this web of coverage kind of close up a bit. So we have almost no polar coverage, although if you remember, during Transporter 1, we can see now we have one orbital path that goes polar. Where are those satellites right now? What's the current position of them? Maybe right here? No, that's not the one. Where are they? This one? No. Can't find the dot of where the actual satellites are, but we do have, if you look carefully, one blue line of polar orbiting satellites. So not much. No coverage for the Penguins, no coverage for Santa, but we're getting there. They started barely, but not nearly enough to actually have coverage there. So, all right, looks like SpaceX is going live. I know you guys have been commenting. Usually I try to get to most of the comments in between launch and deployment because we've got a ton of time between there. So we'll turn them up here in just a second. Maybe we'll check in with you guys and see if anybody has some quick comments here before, but probably too late because now they're live already and I should turn them up. So
View of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 8:37 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center. My name is Andy Tran and I'm a production supervisor here at SpaceX, joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. You're watching a live webcast of our 20th Starlink mission and our 6th mission of 2021. Starlink is a constellation of low Earth orbit satellites designed to provide low latency, high bandwidth broadband to the world, connecting communities that previously never had access to the internet. And at a time when more people are working from home and more students are participating in virtual learning, internet connectivity is more important than ever. A bit later in the webcast, we'll share a story of a rural school district in Virginia benefiting from Starlink's ability to deploy quickly and get its students engaged in remote learning. Today's mission also marks the second time that we'll be reusing our Falcon 9 first stage for an 8th time, and it's actually the first time that this booster is flying from Pad 39A. This booster debuted back in 2018 on the Telstar 18 Vantage mission from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, and flew again for our last Iridium mission in January of 2019 from Vandenberg Air Force Station. From there, it supported several Starlink missions throughout 2019 and 2020 from Space Launch Complex 40. We'll be attempting to recover the booster again on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. There she is on screen. And that's stationed off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. If we are successful, it will mark the 75th recovery of an orbital class rocket.
I see no seagulls.
Our Falcon 9 vehicles were designed for 10 or more flights with minimal refurbishment in between each flight. And today's flight gets us one step closer to that goal. Two quick notes about today's mission. First, we will not have Stage 1 views during this flight with the exception of a Stage 1 landing view from our drone ship camera.
Why?
However, we will be receiving telemetry throughout the mission, so we'll make sure to keep you updated on Stage 1 events as they happen.
Why no Stage 1?
The second is today's the last day you can make a donation to St. Jude's for a chance to ride on a Dragon mission around the Earth later on this year. If you're interested in being on that flight, head over to inspiration4.com for more information. We are currently T-minus 10 minutes from liftoff. All systems are green for an on-time liftoff at 8:37 p.m. Eastern. And with that, let's take a closer look at the rocket on your screen.
I'm Yomezo, a Dragon propulsion engineer here at SpaceX. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 on historic Launch Pad 39A, the same launch pad that first sent people to the moon in 1969. Falcon 9, named after the Star Wars Millennium Falcon, is a two-stage rocket that stands 70 meters tall, which is greater than the wingspan of a 747 aircraft. The number 9 indicates the number of Merlin 1D engines on the first stage, which is the bottom two-thirds of the vehicle. The 9 Merlin engines on the first stage accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to space. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the first stage separates from the rest of the rocket and begins making its way back down to Earth to land on our recovery vessel, Of Course I Still Love You,
There's a ghost.
as Andy mentioned earlier.
What is this?
While Falcon 9 is named for the 9 engines on the first stage, there are actually 10 engines on the rocket. The Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC, is what powers the second stage of Falcon 9 to its targeted orbit. The MVAC can generate about 220,500 pounds of thrust at full power and can be restarted multiple times to place different payloads into different orbits. Our satellites are all safely enclosed inside the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which is that pointed cone at the very top of the rocket.
Both halves
This
being
protects the
reused.
payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent. Once we reach the vacuum of space, we'll jettison the fairing as the second stage continues on its journey to orbit. Today will also be the first time that we're reusing one of our fairing halves for the 4th time. The other half will be flying for its 3rd time. Our recovery ships Go Searcher and Go Navigator will be attempting to recover the fairing halves. Both vehicles are currently stationed in the Atlantic Ocean and will pull the fairing halves from the water upon landing.
Oh, no catch? What? They're not
We
doing the
are
catch,
just
huh?
under 8 minutes to lift off. Let's take a look at how we're progressing in the countdown. The chief engineer held a technical poll at T-minus 1 hour, and the launch director held a propellant load and launch go-no-go poll at the T-minus 38-minute mark. Falcon 9 has been loading propellants since the T-minus 35-minute mark. The vehicle is a bipropellant vehicle, which means it uses 2 types of propellant. For fuel, it uses a refined form of kerosene called Rocket Propellant 1, also known as RP1, and for its oxidizer, super chilled liquid oxygen, we also refer to that as LOX. Currently, RP1 is fully loaded on the second stage and nearly fully loaded on the first stage, and liquid oxygen is loading at the moment right now. We also load helium onto the vehicle, and that began before the webcast went live, and it will continue to top off until about 1.5 minutes before launch. As propellant is consumed throughout the mission, we use helium to maintain pressure in the tanks. Just a few seconds ago, engine chilling began. This is where we allow a small amount of super chilled liquid oxygen to flow into the Merlin engine's turbopumps prior to the full flow of LOX to avoid any thermal shocks to the system. In addition, checkouts of the second stage thrust vector control actuators are also underway. This is known as the engine wiggle test. We move the thrust chamber slightly to make sure that the guidance hardware is a go for flight. The exact same tests happen on the first stage, except those happened just seconds before ignition. The vehicle remains healthy. We are currently working no issues. The range is standing by to support, and the weather looks green as well. All
right.
systems continue to be go for a liftoff at 8:37 p.m. Eastern Time.
In the United States, more than 18 million people currently live in areas without access to high-speed internet, and some estimates actually show that number to be even higher. Internet connectivity is an absolute necessity to working from home, remote learning, and telemedicine. First responders are also increasingly in need of internet access when coordinating emergency activities in areas where traditional internet does not exist or where the infrastructure has been destroyed in the aftermath of wildfires or a natural disaster. Starlink was designed to help meet the growing needs for truly high-speed, low-latency broadband to underserved and unserved areas. One such area is the Wise County Public School District in rural Virginia. When COVID-19 forced schools to close and resort to remote education, it became evident to officials in the area that the Wise community did not have the connectivity it needed to support distance learning for its students. According to a survey conducted by the school district, 40% of teachers and families in the area have limited to no access to internet. In December, the Wise County Public School District announced its plan to provide some families in the area with free Starlink service to promote remote learning. In January, we deployed the Starlink units to the community, and over 40 homes are now connected with service. We are currently delivering beta service both domestically and internationally, and the team will continue to push towards near global coverage of the populated world in 2021. Starlink is available to a limited number of users at this time, but if you're interested in service, we recently started taking orders on a first-come, first-served basis. To reserve your spot in line, you can now put down a deposit that's fully refundable. Head over to starlink.com for more information.
We are currently 4 minutes and 15 seconds away from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. We're currently waiting for the transporter erector, or the TE, to retract. That's the white painted structure right next to the vehicle. In just a few seconds, you might be able to, oh, there it is. The clamp arms have begun to open, and in a few seconds, they should be fully open. And then at around the T-minus 3 minute and 39 second mark, the strongback will begin to recline and retract away from the rocket slightly to its pre-launch position about 2 degrees away from the vehicle. It will finish retracting all the way at around the T-minus 3 minute and 4 second mark. And at the T-minus 0 second mark, the transport erector will retract further away, all the way to 45 degrees away from Falcon 9 as we lift off. The transporter has a couple of jobs. It provides liquids, gases, electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload fairing. You can start to see it retract there to its pre-launch position. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The first stage should finish propellant loading in just a few seconds, and the second stage will finish around the T-minus 2 minute mark.
Togo verification.
At the T-minus 60 second mark, Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown.
Stage 1 lock, slow close out.
At the T-minus 2 second mark, we light the Merlin engines. We use TTEB as our ignition fluid. When it mixes with oxygen, it burns a green colored flame. We then allow the fuel into the thrust chamber, and the engine comes to power for liftoff at T0.
Yeah, you'll see that green flash at the bottom.
To be healthy. The Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is also looking great, and the range is still remaining green for launch.
All right, good news. Yeah, look for especially these night launches, look for the quick green flash right before engine ignition. Usually like T-minus 2 seconds, you'll see a green flash right as the engines ignite. That's the TTEB.
In just a few seconds, we should hear a call out for LOX loading complete, and that will wrap up the last of propellant loading for the vehicle.
A couple people asked about all the vapors and stuff like that. It's a mixture here of condensation and also liquid oxygen. So remember, the fuels there are super cold, super densified, liquid oxygen. And then you also get, so the warm ambient air that touches the outside of the rocket there can condense. That's what a lot of that is condensation at the bottom, especially there on that first stage, as it's cooling down from that liquid oxygen being loaded. And then in the interstage area, there is actually a liquid oxygen vent, where as the liquid oxygen warms up, so it doesn't overpressurize the vehicle, it has to vent out some of that liquid oxygen. And then right now here at T-minus 30 seconds is the final bit, or uh-oh. We got a hold.
It does look like we have held the countdown. It was an abort call, so give us a few moments. We're going to check in with the team and listen on LaunchNet to see if we can get some more information to share.
LD on countdown. We have an abort at T-minus 1 minute and 24 seconds.
Interesting. I was waiting to see. I was about to say at 1 minute and 30 seconds, that's when they drain the propellant lines in the transport erector there, and you see a big vent. But I didn't see that big vent. I was looking for it, and then I looked down at the clock, and I noticed we had a hold. The clock stopped. So that likely is going to mean, because I think the wind, that generally is going to mean that we're scrubbed for today. Unfortunately. It is a like a 20-minute window, but we've talked about this before. Once they commit to a launch time and they start fueling the rocket, there's not enough time to recycle and launch again, because they would miss the window. So again, as we just started talking about, that super cold densified liquid oxygen, and even the kerosene is pretty cold as well. And it needs, the way that the Falcon 9 works is they have that countdown procedure.
You just heard that we had an abort to the countdown around the T-minus 1 minute and 24 second mark. Prior to the countdown, everything was proceeding nominally. Now keep in mind that the purpose of the countdown is to help us catch any potential issues prior to flight. There are 1,000 ways launch can go wrong, and only one way can go right. And given that, we are overly cautious on the ground, and if the team or vehicle sees anything that looks even slightly off, they'll stop the countdown. Overall, the vehicle and payload are healthy and remain in good health. The next launch opportunity is tomorrow, March 1st at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully you'll join us again for our next attempt. Until then, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
All right, so yeah, so as I was just about to say there, so we're definitely scrubbed for today. But yeah, so the fuels there are timed, the loading procedure is timed out so well that they have to have, it has to launch at the time that it's at, like once they start fueling. Otherwise, the fuel would either warm up and they wouldn't have enough of that densified liquid oxygen, for example, in the vehicle at launch time if they let it boil off. Some launch vehicles have like super thick insulation on the outside of them to try to keep that liquid oxygen really cold so that you could have these longer holds or things like that and you don't have to do the recycle time. But Falcon 9 does not have that, which is also what gives Falcon 9 its amazing performance, is because they have that kind of load and go launch procedure with the fuel. So if they do have a hold like this for any reason, and let's say it was just like a sensor issue and it was something they could quickly recover from, they still need usually at least 20 minutes minimum, and that's like really pushing it, because as part of the abort, the clock automatically recycles to 15 minutes. Usually it takes them a couple minutes to figure out like what went wrong, because a lot of those holds, especially towards the later part of the counts, can be computerized holds, but they need a couple minutes to figure out what the problem is, and then they would need at least 20 minutes, but most of the time, especially if it's later in the count like this, they actually have to drain the entire rocket and refuel it. So a hold that late in the count usually means that if they wanted to recycle, it's more like you'd have to drain for half an hour, then restart the fuel loading, which is about 40 minutes. So you're talking like an hour and 20 minutes or so, of what would be a kind of a normal recycle time for Falcon 9. And again, this is only a 20-minute window today, which essentially means it's instantaneous. So once they commit, they say, they could, but prior to launch, they could move the launch time by a minute or two if they really wanted to. But once they say, all right, we're going for 8:37 p.m., and they start fueling, now it's instantaneous. There's not enough time to recycle. So anyways, all right, well, so much for that. A lot of problems with this particular mission as far as delays. So yeah, no, and it sounds like the fact that it was a hold at 1 minute and 24 seconds tells me that it's not weather related, that this is a vehicle related hold. They didn't say exactly what it was, but that would be my analysis, is that this would be a vehicle related hold, because that's a weird time to hold for weather. Usually they would hold earlier if they know the weather's not going to be good, or they would hold later if they were like, maybe it might. Usually they would bring it all the way down to 30 seconds. And then they would be like, we might be able to do it. We might be able to do it. And if you get to 30 seconds and it's still not happening, they're like, all right, hold it. So a minute 24 is weird. That's a weird time to hold. So, all right, before too many people jump out, I will answer some questions here, but I do want to mention that if you want to join our Discord and chat in between launches, that's free. Maybe one of our moderators, Graham already did it, typed !Discord and gave you a nice little invite from our friendly Nightbot. Feel free to join the Discord, join our community, chat with us in between. I'm in there, Graham's in there, all the moderators are in there, plus all our regulars like Monkey DKS, he's in there. So come join us. Become friends with us. We want you. It's part of Space Lobster Nation. All right, there's my sales pitch. It's not really a sales pitch because it's free. How can it be a sales pitch? It's free. Anyways, my promotional message. How's that? All right, let me scroll back because I didn't really get to many comments today. And I'll see what we had. A bunch of people asked about Starship. It looks like it's not happening tomorrow. No earlier than Wednesday now for Starship SN10. Maybe they'll get the first stage camera up and running for tomorrow. Yeah, that's a good comment there, Les. I'm not sure why we don't have a first stage camera today. I did want to clarify. I saw Anita mention it earlier on the fairing catch. She mentioned the fairing catching ships are under some maintenance, which I totally forgot about that. But yeah, the back arms, at least on one of the fairing, I don't know if it's one or both, but I did see, it's been kind of busy for me the last 2 weeks, but I did see that at least one of the fairing catching ships, the two back arms are completely removed. So they are doing some sort of maintenance on them. So that would explain why they're not gonna catch, and they were going to pluck them out of the water. I don't expect that to change for tomorrow. Well, yeah, you know what's gonna be a shame now is I'm not gonna be able to cover this tomorrow. Oh. I have a conflict that I will not be able to cover this tomorrow. That's a shame. All right, well, we tried. At least you tried. All right. Maybe they'll delay it even further, and then I'll be able to cover it. I have conflicts on Monday and Wednesday this week that I can't do any streaming. I have like very, very limited time, and I definitely can't cover this if it's tomorrow. So, this is when life gets in the way of your geeking out over rockets. Why don't they land on land anymore? Says Jack Miller over on Facebook. Good question, Jack. So usually they do still land on land. That's a RTLS landing for return to launch site landing. They do still do that, but it's very limited use case because you need to have a lot of extra fuel in order to land on land. And the only times you can do that is if you have a really light payload that's going to a really low orbit, and then you might have some extra fuel left over that you can spin it around and send it back to land. They did that, that was the first time that they actually landed one of their boosters was on land, and it seemed a lot safer to land on land because you didn't have to worry about this whole floating drone ship. But now they got the drone ship thing down pretty solid, so it's not too much of a worry to land out on the drone ship. But yeah, you need it's still a very limited use case because you need that extra fuel. It takes a lot of fuel. Remember, you're going downrange. You know, the rocket launches. We'll use our friendly Starship for that. The rocket launches, it goes up like this, and then you get separation, and that first stage booster has to turn around and completely null out its velocity. It's going this way, and it has to burn the engines to stop going this way and go back to the launch site. That takes a lot of fuel. A lot more fuel than to just go up, turn around, and then come back down and land. So that's why they don't do it very often, because there's not a lot of payloads and orbital parameters that allow them to do that. They used to do that pretty regularly for the Cargo Dragon launches to the International Space Station. Although now with Dragon 2, Cargo Dragon 2, they are not doing that anymore. So we're gonna see a lot less of that now. That used to be the go-to when we would always see an RTLS landing would be on Cargo Dragon. So, but we're not going to see that anymore. Yeah. Why was it scrubbed? We don't really know. I'm guessing it is a vehicle issue of some sort, but we don't know. Don't know for sure. I would be surprised if it was weather related. There was a 10% chance that weather could affect the launch today, but I would be very surprised given the timing of when they scrubbed it if weather was a factor. It could still be. I'm not saying it's zero, but I would be surprised if that's it. Stop saying it's tomorrow, it's Wednesday. Oh, is the next launch opportunity Wednesday? I thought he said tomorrow. Didn't he say tomorrow? Or are you talking about Starship? That was from Cool Chib 124. I'm not sure what that was in reference to. Yeah, Starlink is, yeah, I thought it was tomorrow. Next launch dem is tomorrow. Okay, thank you, Les. That's what he said, but and then I was reading what the other guy said there, and I was like, oh, did I get that wrong? Yeah, tomorrow is Starlink. Starship is now Wednesday. So many stars. How does it work if they already loaded the fuel? Well, a lot of that fuel will boil off and be lost, like a lot of the liquid oxygen. Much of the fuel, though, they can recover. They can drain it and recover it, re-chill it, and they'll be good to go. But yeah, a lot of the liquid oxygen boils off, and they can't recover that. So they vent it, and it's gone. Where did you hear Wednesday for SN10? That's from Mary, the Boca Chica gal, who lives down in Boca Chica, Texas. Supposed to be bad weather here, an hour north of the Cape, Tuesday and Wednesday, but in Florida, an hour away is complete different weather half the time. Yeah, Florida weather can be tough to predict. Just because you got water on both sides, that can change in a hurry. Somebody said upper level winds. I don't think upper level winds was much of a factor today. The pre-launch forecast, upper level wind shear risk was very low. And when we were looking at the map here, upper level winds, which is right here, about 65 miles per hour, which is not bad at all for launching a rocket. It's really, once you get up to like 120, 140, 150 miles per hour, somebody help me out with metric conversions, but that's where you get into like danger zone. But again, it's not all speed. It's speed, direction, and also how quickly it transitions. So you could have, if it's 65 miles per hour, but, 2 kilometers below that, it was 10 miles per hour. I like how I'm mixing and matching metric measurements wherever I want. But anyways, if the gradient is really sharp and you have a quick transition to high-speed winds, that's also a problem, but that wasn't really much of the case today. All right, let's see. Oh, somebody Jack on Facebook wants the Discord link. Yeah, I forgot to share that with the Facebook people. It's only on YouTube. Hold on, let me grab the link to Discord and I'll share it with the Facebook people. Here you go, Facebook viewers. I forgot about you, sorry. All right, let's go back to questions before we wrap up. Is the launch taking place today? Nope, we're scrubbed today. If the upper level wind is metric and the lower level is imperial. Wouldn't that be confusing? When will it launch? Well, now we're looking at tomorrow. Tomorrow night will be the next attempt for Starlink, and unfortunately I cannot cover that tomorrow night, which is a shame, but they are going to try again tomorrow, assuming we don't know exactly. That's the next opportunity to launch again, but we don't know exactly what the scrub reason was. That could lead to days or even weeks of delay, potentially, but we don't know. It could be something simple. They can bring the rocket horizontal, work on it right there on the pad, bring it back to vertical, and go for it. So they could turn around quickly, or they could have a big problem and we could have another couple of weeks of delays. We don't know. Needed to abort because someone forgot to take the parking brake off, says my buddy Trevor. What's happening, Trevor? Said they forgot to take the parking brake off. Common problem with rockets. It's they always forget to take the parking brake off. Let's see. Starship, Starman, Starlink. Yeah, I know, right? They got Star everything. What's the cool sat tracker showing all the Starlink satellites? I'm assuming you're talking about this one right here. This is called Stuff in Space. It's just stuffin.space. And it'll show you any satellite that's in orbit. And there's a little search box. If you look at all of them, it looks like this. I always forget what the color key is, but let's see. Red is satellites. Blue is the rocket bodies. So that would be like discarded second stages or things like that. And then gray is just debris. And then the one thing they don't have on the legend here is yellow dots. Yellow dots are objects that we know are there, but we don't know what they are. They are quite literally unidentified flying objects. It's just debris generally, but we have no idea where it came from or what it is. So, but yeah, these are all the satellites out here. And now, again, before people freak out, this is not to scale. Like, satellites aren't this big. And they're much, much smaller scale-wise. So it's not like we barely have any room to get off the planet, which is kind of what it looks like here when you zoom out. There's plenty of room. This is not to scale. Satellites are teeny tiny. If they put the dots to scale, we wouldn't be able to see them. But anyway, so you can see, the nice thing is, once you get this, you can see our nice little geostationary ring here, where we get a lot of communication satellites in the geostationary ring way out here. And then you've got your low Earth orbit, which is down here where Starlink is. And then you've got medium Earth orbit, which is where like GPS satellites are. That's this ring here. So, and then you could just type what you want to find. So I just type in Starlink, and it'll give me all the Starlink satellites here. All the Starlink orbital paths that are currently in orbit. So there's that. How much does it cost for fuel per launch? I believe that Elon Musk said it's about $500,000 worth of fuel. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I don't quote me on that number, but I recall him saying that it's about $500,000 worth of fuel, and not all of that would be lost on an abort. But in comparison to the overall cost of the vehicle and the cost of the launch, it's not really that much money. But I believe that that number sticks in my mind. I think he said about $500,000 worth of fuel for each launch. And again, on an abort, it's not like all $500,000 is out the window. You get to recover a lot of that. But when you launch it, then it's out the window. All right, let's see what else we got before we wrap up. Some of this music is so... It's a little bit too chill on the music. Maybe I'm gonna do a different playlist next time. Was this an auto abort or manual abort? We don't really know. It's potential... they could still manual abort, I believe, with 1:24 left. So... I don't know when the exact switch over there is. But we don't know. We don't know the reason for the abort, so... Maybe the seagulls flew into the TFR. That's probably it. I told you they were worried about the seagulls. We might have had a seagull on the drone ship. Maybe that was it. Either that, or it could have been Space Lobster trying to ruin everything.
Space Lobster ate the T-Teb. That's the answer.
Could it be something related to LOX loading? I didn't hear the LOX loading complete callouts. I did hear them say LOX load. Well, I heard them say stage 1 LOX loading complete. I did not hear the stage 2 LOX loading complete, but I was also talking at the time that they would have had that call out. So yeah, it's possible. We've seen that before, where second stage liquid oxygen, the liquid oxygen tank pressure was a little higher than they wanted it to be. And they scrubbed for that on a relatively recent launch. I can't recall exactly which one that was, but within the last couple of months, we had one that was scrubbed for a second stage. I'm pretty sure it was second stage liquid oxygen. So that's certainly possible. But we don't know. We have no idea. Could a rocket launch towards the west? It can. You could do that. You'd have to do it from Vandenberg. So you can't launch to the west from Florida. That's a population hazard. But you could do it from Vandenberg. You could launch to the west. I can't recall a rocket that has actually done that. But you could. The downside, though, is you need extra fuel. Because remember, the Earth is rotating. Right? So you're already traveling this way once you launch. and you get a little bit of a speed boost by going to the east here. If you want to launch west, you just need more fuel, lighter payload. So yeah, you could go west. It can be done. You can go south as well. It's just that nobody really does that, because when you're in orbit, it's really about passing overhead of a particular point. And if you're going to pass overhead, what difference does it make if you're going to pass west to east or east to west? You're still going overhead. So I can't think of, maybe somebody can help me out if there's, I'm sure there's got to be a time when we've done that, but I just can't think of one off the top of my head. Does anybody know of one that has gone west? I don't know of any that have done that. Israeli rockets launch west? All right. Yeah, I guess some of it could be a geographic consideration. I mean, here we're kind of spoiled here in the U.S. where we can launch east or west depending on which coast we want to launch from. But I guess if you're limited in which direction you can send rockets, I mean, in Israel, I don't imagine you probably can't really go west or east rather without getting a lot of people nervous. So you probably got to go west so you stay over the water. Minuteman 3 ICBM just did a test launch 3 days ago. All right, I don't know anything about that, but that's kind of cool. Let's see. You can. Oh, I just read that one. Could all the issues recently have to do with tonight's scrub, explosive landing in Texas, failure to land booster? I mean, I don't think these are all related. The only thing that I think could be related is the fact that at Starlink 17, this particular mission has been delayed and delayed and delayed a bunch of times. There could be something related there with this particular booster that's now, this is going to be its 8th flight. So there could be something to that, you know, maybe it's a little, maybe it's showing its age. We don't really know. What is the difference between low Earth orbit and polar satellite orbit? Well, polar orbit is a specific type of low Earth orbit. So low Earth orbit really is just describing your altitude, how far away from the planet you are. That's where all these Starlink satellites, these are in low Earth orbit. But a low Earth orbit that is a polar orbiting satellite, that is just a specific low Earth orbit that is going. I guess it doesn't have to be low Earth orbit. It could be. You could be in medium Earth polar orbit, but that's just describing that it's going over the poles, basically in a north-south direction instead of an east-west direction. They lost the launch key, says Brett Bagosi, one of our members. Running around, could you imagine them in mission control? I just had the key. It was right here. I put it right here. Who's got the key? I feel like that's something you would see in gosh, what was that TV show that just came out with Steve Carell? Space Force. I can't believe I forgot the name of that. I feel like that's a scene that you would see in the Space Force Netflix show. Not sponsored. Just got here. Are they going to launch it? No, Tony Stark, they are not going to launch it. Love the name, though, by the way. Yeah, not as Anita says. They will launch it, just not today. Right, yeah, tomorrow is the next possible attempt. Starlink 2202 is on a 97.51 degree inclination polar orbit, the lone Starlink to orbit this way for now. Yeah, is that the... I was trying to find out which one it was. There it is. Is that... No, that's 2022? Oh, 2202. God, so many twos. 2202. There it is. Yeah, there's our... It's very lonely in this polar orbit right now. There it is. Heading, it's going north to south, so this is currently heading towards our friendly penguins. Going towards the south right now, over South America. 17th time's a charm. Yeah, maybe not so much for this flight. How common are polar orbits? What is the ratio of polar orbits compared to geostationary orbit, any other orbit? Polar orbits are pretty common, especially for like CubeSats. Like if you look at Rocket Lab, for example, Rocket Lab launches almost exclusively polar orbits. So a lot of CubeSats are in polar orbit, especially if you're flying on Rocket Lab. But it's not a... I would say like an inclined orbit like Starlink is in is much more common because you can cover more of the planet in a single with a single satellite vehicle if you want. I mean, if that's what your goal is. I guess it all depends on what your goal is, but those seem to be very, very common. Geostationary is very common, but you also need fewer satellites if you're going geostationary, because then you have, like, if you're Sirius XM and you're sending up a satellite radio, what am I trying to say? A satellite that provides radio communication. What do we want? You know, then you send up this satellite here. Which one is this? Where is it? This is Sirius 4. It basically just parks over a certain area, and then, you know, if you're Sirius XM, I don't think this is the right satellite that I'm looking for. Sirius FM 6. There you go. So here's Sirius FM 6 parked over the US right here. And this is where it is. So if you want to provide, this is the satellite's view of the United States from right here. If you're trying to provide radio internet, or what am I trying to say? Help me. Help me. What's the SOS? If you're trying to provide radio service by satellite, is what I'm trying to say. You only need one satellite. You park it over the U.S. and boom goes the dynamite. You got your service. But God, I can't recover from my lack of ability to speak. But if you're in low Earth orbit, you need more satellites because they pass overhead quickly, like Starlink. You need lots of those because they fly overhead so quickly. So, does that make any sense? What I'm saying? Did I explain it even remotely in a way that made any sort of sense? I hope so, because I'm giving up on it because I don't. I can't do it. SOS. Okay. Why was it scrubbed? We don't know. I was hoping to watch another beautiful launch. I know, me too. Especially since I'm not going to be able to cover it tomorrow now. 99% of that junk is from debris left over from the Chinese satellite test explosion. Yeah, there is a lot of debris up there from that, but I don't know if the 99% number is accurate, but there's definitely a lot of debris from that. So that's why that's not a good thing to do. How high are the satellites going to be? They're 550 kilometers in altitude is what Starlink is in. That's when we're talking low Earth orbit. Specifically for Starlink, 550 kilometers is that is their operational orbit. They get dropped off by the Falcon 9 in about like 260 to 270 kilometers in altitude. And then the satellites themselves, it's actually kind of cool. I made a video about this called, what did I call it? Like 3 interesting features of Starlink. But it's on my channel. It talks about those. And one of those interesting features is the fact that the Starlink satellites themselves autonomously navigate to their specific spot in the sky after they've been dropped off. They do all their checkouts and everything else, but they drop them off into a lower orbit so that if there's anything wrong with the satellites, it will deorbit. And it's going to deorbit. Right, it's going to deorbit. It's going to deorbit on its own from atmospheric drag. And if everything works, then it can start to raise its orbit to get up to that 550 kilometers. Those are all satellites? Yes, yeah. Currently 1,081 Starlink satellites in orbit right now. 1,081. People can't leave low Earth orbit. They can. They can. I actually just made a TikTok video about this because I think what Jared is probably referring to, which is always a common like conspiracy theory claim, is that people can't go through the Van Allen belts because then that's why we stay in low Earth orbit. That's why the space station is in low Earth orbit, is because of the Van Allen belts, because we want to not just orbit people constantly in radiation belts, but we can go through the Van Allen belts. And I made a TikTok about that. You should be following me on TikTok, because I make TikToks, and I made a TikTok about the Van Allen belts just like 2 days ago. Are any movies accurate when they show debris going past a vessel wreaking havoc? Well, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking of like a particular movie in general, which is the Sandra Bullock? Gravity? Is that the name of the movie? I mean, that is a like a scary possibility, but not something that like really happens regularly. But that's something called the Kessler syndrome. It's the danger there is like once you, and this kind of goes back to whoever commented about the Chinese satellite test explosion. Like once one satellite collision happens, the danger there is that creates so much debris that it becomes a chain reaction. Then all that debris hits another satellite, which creates more debris, which then that debris hits other satellites, which creates more debris and hits other and all of a sudden you have this chain reaction where all of your satellites are getting crushed by debris. It's called the Kessler syndrome. That's a really scary possibility, which is kind of what the movie Gravity is, or can't remember the plot of that. Did they blow up a satellite in Gravity? I don't remember what the plot of the movie is, but I just remember like tons of debris coming through. The unrealistic part I don't think would be that how quickly it all unfolded while there were people still outside on an EVA, but anyway, not to mention they got all kinds of problems with that movie, but anyways, but there is real debris that puts the space station in jeopardy, and sometimes they have to move the orbit so they don't get hit by debris. So, Yellow Fling, say TikTok one more time. I love saying TikTok. It's a great service name. Regardless of what your opinion is of TikTok, I just like to say TikTok. I'm gonna make a TikTok. I love it. They blow up physics and gravity. Yeah. There are some. We should make a video. I started actually collecting some stuff that I might make a video about that. All the things in gravity that drive me nuts. My wife can't watch space movies with me, I don't think, because every time we watch a space movie, I'm like, oh, come on, you can't do, that is not realistic. She's like, it's a movie, just shut up. Could you explain what all this is and what's happening with this launch? I'm very confused. So what they're trying to launch right now is another set of Starlink satellites. This is low Earth orbit internet constellation. So we have satellites that provide internet service, but they're very far away in geostationary orbit, which is this grayish ring out here. You can what's one of them? I know we have like HughesNet, but I don't know what the satellite is called. Well, I'll just go back to like the serious ones because I know those are in geostationary. So here's your geostationary orbit, way away from the planet. It takes a long time to communicate with a satellite in geostationary orbit, so your latency to the satellite and back to Earth to communicate with it is very high, not real conducive to high-speed internet. So that's where Starlink is trying to do this low Earth orbit. You can see how much closer it is to reduce that time it takes to communicate with the satellite. Now it's closer, right? Piece of cake. Problem with that, though, is now that it's in low Earth orbit, you can't just park in a spot in the sky. In order to be in low Earth orbit, you have to travel very quickly across the sky. So Now, your satellite, instead of just being one satellite parked in the sky, now you get your satellites that are going, I mean, it's not quite that fast. You get like 5 minutes of coverage. Stays in the sky for 5 minutes, and then it's gone. And there has to be another satellite behind it so that you can have constant connection. This one's in, gone. Next one comes, gone. Next one comes. And so you're constantly switching which satellite you're connected to as they just pass overhead. And that's why you need lots and lots of satellites, because you're just like every 5 minutes you're switching to a new satellite that's overhead. So you need lots and lots of satellites. But the upside is that it's really the only way to get fast, low latency, high speed internet with satellite service. And this would be global. Middle of the ocean, high speed internet. Eventually, not right now because we have no polar coverage, you can see, but eventually in Antarctica doing research, high speed internet. If you're on I don't know, an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean, high speed internet. Mission, you're going to visit Santa, high speed internet, whatever it is. I mean, you could even right now. One of the other cool things, this is why you should watch my Starlink video, but they use phased array antennas, which the antennas can easily switch which direction their beams are going. And in theory, you could even put these on like airplanes. Right now, they're not really very mobile, but you could put Starlink on an airplane or something and have high-speed internet on an airplane. I mean, they already kind of have that a little bit, but this could be an alternative, potentially even better. So... Rue Glock says, which will be amazing because working offshore, you can't even watch a YouTube video, really. Yeah, I imagine that would be tough. I don't know if Rue works offshore, but yeah, if you work on an oil rig, like, you're going to take a break, like, you're not watching TikTok. You're not watching TikTok because there's no service. Maybe Santa can help out with the rocket launches. Yeah, maybe. If I pre-order Starlink, how does all that work? Is there any future possible use for boaters that want connection in places like the Bahamas or other remote areas? So, as of right now, Starlink is geographically locked to your service address. So you can't take Starlink mobile yet. They have said that they have plans to allow that. They're just not there yet. And when it first becomes available in your area, whether that's later this year or even next year, it's probably still going to be geographically locked to your service address. Eventually, with some upgrades to potentially their ground station is really what that needs upgrades. That's my guess. They may also just be waiting for more satellites to be in orbit so that they can have available redundancies and constant service that's for the entire globe. Once they get to that point, they've said that they have plans for a mobile type service. So initially, not an option, but maybe in a year and a half or so, 2 years. I don't know how long. I mean, they're going quickly, but I'm thinking you're probably looking at like 2 years that maybe they'll have mobile service. I could be completely wrong on that. They could come out 3 months from now and be like, we're offering mobile service. And I'd be like, well, I was wrong. But that's just my guess. But that'll be pretty cool. Especially if I ever go down to Boca Chica. Because I've heard that the internet in Boca Chica is, especially mobile service, is horrendous. So having Starlink to do something like this on location in Boca Chica would be pretty awesome. TikTok encounter times 18. I'm just going to keep saying TikTok. All right. Well, I think we've been going for a while. We've been scrubbed for long enough. So they know what happened to the recent Falcon 9 Stage 1 that didn't land. The only thing that I've heard is that there was heat damage to one of the engines that caused an engine failure of some sort. They were very vague and nondescript about the actual event because it was currently under investigation. I mean, I don't know why I'm air quoting that. It's true, but if they just don't want to tell us what's happening in the investigation. So that's all I know right now from the last one. Could there be a use for domestic businesses looking for cheaper and more reliable internet service? Yeah, so the thing with Starlink, the primary goal of Starlink, as of right now, in the early stages here, is really to service underserved areas, places where you can't really get high-speed internet. So like somebody like me, I'm streaming in 1080p, 60 frames per second, like I got decent internet. Starlink is probably not meant for me right now. But you drive, I say this all the time, but you drive 5 minutes down the road for me, a little more rural, and all they have is DSL, like 20 megabit per second speed, download speed, like 1 megabit per second upload speed. Like, it's terrible. I'd be driving myself crazy. I'd be pulling my hair out, which is not a good thing because I don't have much left. I'd be pulling it out with that kind of internet service. So, for people like them, Starlink would be amazing, and that's only 5 minutes down the road. I'm here in Rochester, New York. It's not like we're in the middle of nowhere. I'm in a suburban area. You go a little more rural. It's the service is not that great. That's where Starlink would be. Is the initial plan is to service those types of areas, or even places that are in the middle of nowhere. That would be great for them as well. But it's not a great replacement for people that already have great high-speed internet, especially if you have fiber optics. Like, keep your fiber optics. But they're planning upgrades to the service that may help improve their speeds to make it more competitive for somebody like me that already has great internet. That would be fantastic. I'd be the first one. I'd be first in line to sign up. So, any info on the abort? We don't know much in detail on the abort, but let me just check. Okay, it was an auto abort, not a manual abort. I know somebody asked about that before. SpaceX did tweet that it was an auto abort. So that would have been an abort caused by the computer, but they did not specify any additional details beyond that. So we had some sort of auto abort. So again, that means that it's not weather that would have been the cause. This would have been a computerized abort reasoning for sensors, or something, an out of family reading, something like that. But that's all we have for detail. I said I was gonna end, but now I see a bunch of people tweeted at me on Twitter with questions. Let me see. Can you tell us the link you're using to watch the satellites? That was from who's that from? At MOYPTY on Twitter. Yeah, that's this thing called Stuff in Space. Pretty cool. Let's see. Anything else that I want to grab before we end? I don't think so. Are you for real? I am. That's as real as it gets right here, man. My man. It's from Gary. Gary, it's real. It's real, Gary. We're here. Are you for real? So not weather related. Yeah, nope. This was auto abort, so this is not weather related. This would have been something with the vehicle. Once they're in orbit, how long does it take to start working? So the Starlink satellites raise their orbit over a period of like 2 to 4 weeks to get into their final orbit. So I think most of them are taking like 4 weeks to get to their operational orbits. So it does take a bit of time after they get dropped off before they're actually ready for service. A couple people already pre-ordered, which is awesome. Like Yellow Fling already pre-ordered Starlink for my grandparents' house. They have DSL in the ground or an AT&T tower with around 240 milliseconds ping. Yeah, see, that's perfect for Starlink service. That would be great. Great upgrade for them. All right. I'm looking through. I'm just gonna see if I had anything else. I'm laughing about Jared. So Jared over on Facebook is I'm pretty sure Jared is full on board with all the conspiracy theories, but in Jared's defense, he has some legitimate questions, which I will answer, because I like to answer legitimate questions if people that believe this is all fake actually have legitimate questions. So let's answer those before we wrap up. We'll try not to get too far into conspiracy land, but there were a couple of things that Jared asked, which I think are kind of nice. One thing was that Jared asked, how did NASA lose the tech to go to the moon? Which is kind of a myth. One of the things the thing what they really refer to about not being able to like rebuild the Saturn V rockets is not necessarily that we like lost the plans. It's the fact that we don't have the skilled workers and the notes and everything that people like. Those things were handcrafted way back in the 60s and 70s when you were building the Saturn V rocket, and it really took like the knowledge and the skill set of the people building the rockets that sometimes like they had a process of putting things together or welding certain things together, and you know they had the plans and the possibility to do that kind of stuff, but without the knowledge of the person that had built all of the things, you know, thus far, we just don't have that sort of expertise again. In addition to that, we don't necessarily like building the Saturn V rocket is a terrible idea. The Saturn V rocket was awesome, but it's also very, very outdated by today's tech standards. Like, we should not be sending people to the moon on a Saturn V in 2021. We should, like, materials are better, fuel efficiency is better, computers are better. We got lots of things that are a lot better. So there's really no reason for us to even attempt to rebuild the Saturn V rocket. So there's that one. What was the other one? He asked about the Van Allen belts. That one, I'm just going to tell you to watch my TikTok on that, because I already did a video about the Van Allen belts and why we can fly through the Van Allen belts no problem. I mean, I shouldn't say no problem, because the Van Allen belts definitely present a problem. Particularly, the biggest problem with the Van Allen belts is really electronics. It's not so much the human factor. We've flown humans through the Van Allen belts, and the dosimeters that the Apollo astronauts had were relatively low readings because we would fly fast through them. We didn't fly through the thickest parts. I said I wasn't going to explain all this, but I'm going to do it anyways. We didn't fly through the thickest parts. We flew through the thin parts, and we went fast through them, so we didn't spend a lot of time there. Just like you said, we stay in low Earth orbits. We stay in low Earth orbit with the space station so that we don't spend lots of time in the Van Allen belts. So flying through the thin parts really, really quickly means you're not exposed to that much radiation. You also had shielding from the skin of the spacecraft, which is a very good shielding from radiation. It's not 100% shielding, but good enough to keep it to about what you would have for a CT scan. And so that's the Van Allen belts. What else did he ask? There's a couple. We're going to town on something. There was one other one that I was going to address just because I always hear this one. What was the other one that he asked? I can't find it. I don't know. That's probably enough, but all right. Well, I'm done answering Jared's question. I mean, he did ask some great questions, but when I answer them, all he responds with is BS. So that's it. That's all he's got. Okay. Well, fine. You don't want my explanation? Then fine. All right. So yes, Bruce says, the Saturn V was designed in 1962. I think rocketry has improved a little since then. Yeah, just a little bit, Bruce. This is true. When the first stage booster lands on a landing ship, how does the ship not sink with the thrust of the rocket? Well, it's relatively low thrust during landing, because remember, the rocket is almost empty of fuel there, so it's relatively lightweight. They actually only land on usually just one engine. So they only need one of the 9 engines, so it's relatively low thrust, and definitely not enough thrust to just sink the ship. A lot of people forget about that. They think it's a, super heavy rocket, super heavy first stage booster, which it is at liftoff when it's full of fuel. But at the end, if you've seen any of our previous broadcasts where we show some of the fuel left on board, like they're almost running on fumes at that point. Yeah, there you go. Heat Shield says that also the facilities for Saturn V don't exist anymore either. Try building a Model T today from scratch. But Ford Raptors still exist. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just don't... There's no reason for us to try to rebuild all the Saturn V infrastructure and try to rebuild everything again. Why are all ground stations in the U.S. for Starlink? They're not. They're already servicing like Canada. They have plans to service all over the country, all over the world. I love Conspiracy Land. It's a fun place to visit. I try not to spend too much time, but I like to peek in for a minute, say hi to the people. How can Starlink be a game changer outside of a rural area? Well, I'll use myself as a perfect example. So I do have great internet service where I am here, but I also have only one internet service provider. That's it. There's no competition here. I have one high-speed internet service provider and I have one DSL provider. I'm not going to DSL because I can't do this with DSL. I could go satellite internet, but I can't do this with satellite internet. It's not so realistically, if I want to do this, I have one internet service provider that I can choose from. Starlink could introduce competition globally to every internet service provider that's out there. And competition is good for keeping prices down, improving service offerings, things like that. So I think that would be a great thing. There you go. Hired Gun says the empty rocket weighs 1 million pounds, but those seagoing barges are designed to carry 10 million pounds of cargo containers. There you go. Thanks for looking up the stats on that, Hired Gun. How much are they paying you? Not enough. I wish they were paying me. Man. My studio would be a lot nicer condition if they were paying me, that's for sure. When will you be able to go live after today? Well, if they push it to Tuesday, I can stream on Tuesday. I just have conflicts on Monday and Wednesday this week. And that's really it. So I can't cover it tomorrow. Why does SpaceX not cover the second stage? The second stage is going a lot faster. A lot faster. Way harder to come back. You would need a lot more fuel to slow it down, and they just don't have enough fuel left. If you don't want to use fuel to slow down, then you have to add like a heat shield, essentially. It's basically like a capsule returning to Earth at that point. Heat shields are heavy. It's very, very difficult problem to solve for the size of the Falcon 9 and the Falcon 9 second stage. So you just can't, it was never designed for that. Trying to do recovery for the second stage would mean that you can't launch as big of a payload, or you'd have to add a lot of weight and a lot of fuel and change the whole design around. It just wasn't worth it. And that's why they're just going to work on Starship and let Starship handle that. Hey, okay. Oh, Anita says, we are paying you. This is true, Anita. Thank you. Anita's one of our Patreon members. If you want to, I should say thank you to our Patreon members and our YouTube channel members, because we do. Overlook Horizon is a 501c3 nonprofit. If you don't want to support the nonprofit and the videos and stuff we make, become a Patreon member or a YouTube channel member, and we will and you can help make stuff like this possible. All right, I've droned on enough. That's it. I'm wrapping it up. I'm heading out. We did it all. We talked about Starlink, a bit about Starship. We dropped into conspiracy land for a touch, and now I'm out. I'm out of here, and but I will be on Discord. So if you want to chat it up, I'm gonna try to be a little more on Discord a little bit more. It's been a little bit busy the last couple weeks, but we'll try to do some more of that. But that's gonna be it for me. I'm gonna end it right here. And hopefully I'll see some of you guys over on Discord, and I'll see you next time. I don't know when that is because I can't cover Starlink tomorrow. If Starship launches on Wednesday, I probably can't cover it, which I'm super bummed about. Kind of hoping they delay it to like Thursday, because then I will definitely cover Starship if it's on Thursday. But so I don't know when the next one is, but stay tuned because there will be more. All right. My name's Tori, this is Overlook Horizon, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody. See ya.